Emperor of Babylon, Orfeo Saga number 2, read by Eiland Jr.
Book 1, Chapter 1. Zerga lay in the dark, uncertain as to whether he was being observed, although he sensed that some malign presence was perched nearby, searching for a weakness. He began to test his bonds, wondering whether their tightness truly meant that they were so carefully arranged that escape would be impossible, or perchance there was a flaw in the bindings that would allow him to work free. He did not trust the air around him, sensing that he was being watched, but he might not have another chance to determine the limits of his confinement. He tried one hand and then the other. The result was not reassuring, as they seemed to be securely set in place behind his back, and there seemed to be another loop of rope for security. The legs, which were lashed together and then pulled backwards, bending at the knee, seemed similarly secure. He had loosed himself dozens of times from bonds that had at first seemed secure, but these were expertly applied. If there were a weakness, he had not been able to find it, nor could he contort his body so that his teeth could be brought to bear in the struggle against his bonds. Although he could see little in the darkness, he sensed that a part of him was held in bronze chains, against which teeth were useless. After a while, he ceased trying to find a weakness, aware that a watcher could have guessed the purpose of his movements, and it was perhaps best that he appear passive. He thought back on how he had come to such helplessness, and even now he was unsure of how it had happened. He had been summoned to Hasusis with a message containing a password, indicating that it had come from another wanderer, and there he had awaited the person who was to make contact and give him information of great interest to his clan. Evil was afoot in the land, and there were faint rumors of stirrings from the great lands to the south. Yet Zerga himself felt it to be little business of his, as he had made the eastern rim of the great inland sea the focus of his attention. He had not traveled down the great rivers to the south in many years, and he had little interest there. So why was he lured here and then attacked in a room he had taken above a local tavern? He had no idea where he was at the moment, as the powerful sets of hands that had terminated his sleep, despite the traps and snares he always set around his bed while in a strange land, had known who he was and had expertly bound him in the dark, lowering him out the window and then carrying him perhaps a few thousand paces in a direction he could not determine. Now he lay in the dark, barely unable to make out the location of walls that appeared to be of stone. He feigned sleep and listened intently. There was someone else nearby, and Zerga considered many possible approaches to this dilemma. There was nothing tentative or amateurish about the way he had been captured, as if his enemies, whoever they might be, had left nothing to chance. If they wished to kill him, it could already have been done, and no one would be the wiser. Perhaps he would be interrogated for information. Possibly he would be tortured. He wondered how he might be able to get word to some ally who might help, and yet he recognized that for the first time in his life, he was out of touch with the world of wanderers, and he considered the possibility that their days on earth had come to an end. Nadar had been killed in their escape from Thera, and he knew of numerous others who had simply disappeared. He shuddered to think that an era may have ended, and yet he thought upon Orfeo the Achaean, and even his wife, who had been trained by Nadar. They were young and showed none of the sophistication of the seasoned wanderer, and yet they were surprisingly forceful. He would have been called for help from a more seasoned pair, but he had no choice. If he could have sent a message asking for help, it would have been to the two of them. Yet it seemed highly dubious that he could send a message at all. Perhaps he could sleep and dream of some excuse. It might even encourage his watcher to sleep, and then perhaps Zerga could find a way out. He let himself slip into a light sleep. He could dispel with little more than a thought of danger. Then he resumed consciousness some hours later. He was still in a dark place, and he knew there was someone watching, but the faint pattern of respirations was different. Whoever his enemies might be, there were enough of them to station a steady watch. He slept again and awoke refreshed. This time, the same watcher was hidden somewhere not far away. "Tell me what you want," said Zerga aloud. "We are wasting time, and I cannot help you bound like this." There was no answer, but he noticed that a bowl of some kind of mush had been placed near enough so that he could wiggle closer and place his mouth over it and could slowly and awkwardly feed himself. Unless the mix contained some kind of poison, it was welcome a nourishment, as he realized how hungry he had been.